Sorry. Didn't get to finish my food. Let's get some music going. Ooh, that's loud. Alright. Okay. Yes. I think. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you again. Well, I don't really see you, but you see me, so I hope it's nice you see me today. Anyways. I did talk about last week doing a lesson, and then I never got the chance to get around to actually making that lesson. So here's to hoping I actually get around to being able to make it this time. Oh, that's a good question. What is... Okay, it's only the 21st. Whew. And then the 28th. So yeah, Christmas isn't going to affect my stream. Alright. So let's go ahead and get started. Tooth cavities provide unique ecological insight into living primates and fossil humans. So cavities are really interesting, and they're kind of other primates get them, obviously, but it's so prevalent in modern day humans, and it's because of the diet we consume. I know that you probably hear, oh, Americans, we eat so much sugar, we eat junk food all the time, but it's not just that, it's the agriculture. So when we started domesticating wild grains, that completely changed our diets. We started introducing so many more carbs, and that completely changed our health and our teeth. How we chew, how much we have to chew, it changed a lot. And then they're also finding with gut microbiome that did a lot of, well, I don't want to say damage, it affected it a lot as well with the diet we were consuming, switching to an agricultural lifestyle. I want to say hello to everybody. Oh, I didn't do that. I always forget to do this. Let's see. So we got cavities. I always forget to update the title of the stream. Don't know why, but I do. Oops, that's not right. Nasca. Okay. There we go. Okay. Go on the Discord, tell people I am live. Oops, no. Back to the cavities. Let's see what they say. Tooth decay is a common and unfortunate problem for many of us, but two University of Otago studies show it is also an issue for other primates as well as our fossil relatives and ancestors. Dr. Ian Toll, the former Sir Thomas Sidney postdoctoral fellow in Otago's Faculty of Dentistry, says cavities are often considered to be a modern disease unique to humans, related to a diet rich in processed sugary foods. However, he says there is growing evidence tooth decay also occurs to a certain extent in other animal groups. Of course it does, you know? Teeth, they're just susceptible to being rotten sometimes, you know? And it doesn't have to just be the domesticated grains and fruits. Hey, Drewski, how's it going? Doesn't just have to be the domesticated grains that are causing it. Obviously, adding these carbohydrates to our diet increased the chances of getting cavities, but the chance was always there. I mean, look at Turkana boy. He died of an abscess. Likely. It's believed he died of an abscess in his jaw. This research helps us understand changes in diet and behavior in human evolution. It also provides insight into particular behaviors in our living primate relatives. Further research published in the journal, they analyzed more than 8,000 extant primate and fossil hominin teeth and assessed variation in tooth decay patterns in relation to diet and behavior. They found 3.3% of teeth in living primates had caries, which are cavities, which is similar to the incidence in fossil humans. However, all caries in the fossil humans samples studied were on back teeth, whereas the vast majority in living primates were on the front teeth. That could really skew that. You're more likely to get cavities in your molars than you are in your front teeth, unless you're doing something specific that utilizes those front teeth a lot. So if you are a smoker, you might find that you kind of, right between the two front teeth, get cavities. Depending, I mean, there's also other things you can do. I've seen teeth where they utilized their teeth to process hides, so it was like completely just sawed down. So the sooner you expose the dentin, you're going to have more issues, likely have more issues. It's softer than the enamel. The fascinating feeding behaviors of animals such as chimpanzees using their large front teeth to help suck sugary liquid out of figs contributes to creating caries patterns rarely seen in humans. See, that's what I'm saying. Unless you're doing like a specific activity that's going to introduce those sugars to the front teeth, you're not likely. Or maybe it's not sugar, maybe it's acidic or something, so smokers tend to have that front tooth issue. It looks like the chimpanzees are having the front incisors because they're using them to suck the liquid out of figs. Why would they suck it out instead of just eating it? I don't know, maybe I eat tomatoes like that, like cherry tomatoes. You kind of suck the fluid out of it and then eat it. I do that, so maybe that's what they're doing. I didn't know figs had juice inside them. I thought they were relatively dry. Indeed, in humans, I've never eaten a fresh fig though, only ever like canned. So humans, our back teeth are mostly affected by dental decay, whereas in other primates it's typically the front teeth. Another interesting aspect of this research was that female chimpanzees had more caries than males, with similar sex differences often evident in humans. Does that mean females tend to have a higher sweet tooth? The work also revealed how similar decay patterns between captive primates and humans are, highlighting how primates often don't undertake specific natural behaviors in captivity. Caries, well, of course, they're adapting their behaviors to their environment. Caries occurred throughout human evolution, and that doesn't seem to change much for millions of years, with less than 5% of teeth affected. However, with the onset of agriculture, this increased rapidly to more than 20% of teeth having cavities in some samples. How old? Because the diet today, or even since probably the early 1900s, is vastly different than other modern humans 12,000 years ago, so 10,000 years ago. This study is part of a larger body of work Dr. Towle and colleagues have undertaken into the teeth of primates and human ancestors. Mentored by Dr. Locke, I hope this particular part of the research will help the public understand how living primates have complex and varied feeding behaviors, yet share this common disease with us. Tooth decay has the potential to offer unique ecological insight into extinct primate groups. Also, I'd like to know what humans they were looking at. I'd need to look at the source. Because if they're looking at, like, modern American or European, that their diet's way different than if you're looking at, like, modern China or something. And also, if you're in city or rural areas. Let's see. Okay, not exactly what I was hoping for. Oh well. What is this? New Zealand. Nice. Okay. I didn't know where that university was. Alright, so teeth. Fascinating stuff. Brush your teeth, people. Brush them. If my studies have taught me anything, is to take care of your teeth. Because I've seen what losing your teeth does to the skull. It's crazy. Like, the jaw shrinks and then it kind of, like, comes up and it loses, so that, like, sunk in cheek look that some old people tend to have if they don't wear their dentures inside. Yeah, that's because their face is shrinking. So, brush your teeth, because people can have some gnarly abscesses that happen. You could die if you just flat out don't take care of your teeth, never brush them, never go to the dentist. That infection would just spread. But yes, it made me fearful. And I never, like, flossed my teeth growing up. What kid does, right? And after studying dentition, I floss. I floss very regularly. I brush multiple times a day, and yeah, and it's obvious, like, going to the dentist, they're like, whoa, you got nice teeth. So it's funny. It's like, it's paying off. Haha, flossing is actually important, because they can tell. Okay, next one. The Stanya ivory pendant is the oldest Eurasian artifact to date. A recent publication in the journal Scientific Reports reveals the discovery of a decorated ivory pendant and bone awl from a cave site in Poland. Are you okay? What's wrong? Sorry, it's the dog. Oh, you just needy? Just needy? Want some love? Yeah. There you go. Okay, I gotta get back to the stream. Alright. Ivory pendant and bone awl from a cave site in Poland called Stania. These items were discovered in 2010. Prior knowledge of Aurignacian cultures manipulating mammoth ivory was established from artifacts found in... I don't even know how to pronounce that letter. That is a letter I am not accustomed to. Let's see. Let's see. Hold on. There it is. How's that? No. Let's see. Oh, it's an S. Geisenklusterle. Right? Geisenklusterle. Okay. Geisenklustele. It's an S, guys. Yeah. Anyways, we'll close that. Get the music going again. Alright. So, mammoth ivory was established from artifacts found in Geisenklustele Cave and Hohlfels Cave in southwestern Germany and Tuto de Camelhut Cave in France. Oh, France. That's a French, of course. Camelhut Cave? I don't know. But inaccurate dating in the form of stratigraphic context only limited our understanding of the true age of these earlier discoveries. Shifts in frost disrupted the stratigraphy of the Stanier Cave site to the ivory pendant and bone. All could only be dated by direct radiocarbon dating. Using an accelerator mass spectrometer, the researchers extracted collagen and performed 2 separate radiocarbon dating tests at 2 separate laboratories to ensure precise, accurate results. The pendant is dated to be somewhere between 41,730 and 41,340 years old. The bone awl, on the other hand, had been carved sometime between 42,270 and 42,070 years ago. So they've got like a 1,000-year difference going on. This makes the pendant the oldest adorned artifact found in Eurasia to date. It is hard to decipher what the looping curve of over 50 puncture marks and 2 holes represented to these people. This ornate pattern is not strictly meant for decoration alone. Perhaps each represents a successful kill during a hunt, or perhaps there is some symbolic to the cycles of the cosmos, such as the sun and moon, as represented by the 2 holes. Let's see. So you got that, and it loops. You got it there, and there, and that. We may likely never know the meaning behind this pendant, but what is certain is that it is the oldest known jewelry of its kind in Eurasia. Furthermore, it establishes the oldest evidence of Eurasian art tradition that is directly connected to the spread of modern Homo sapiens, and the replacement of other hominins throughout Europe during Upper Paleolithic. The term Eurasian specifically refers to a diverse style of stone bone tools that first appeared in European archaeological record around 43,000 years ago. In addition to making tools, the Eurasian culture also produced ornaments such as I lost my train of thought. Engraved pendants, beads, bracelets, along with cave art and stylized Venus figurines. The emergence of art reveals how ancient humans interpreted the world around them and communicated it. By directly dating this art form, we now have solid evidence that symbolic behaviors emerged at least 41,500 years ago. At least, probably much before that, probably. I mean, art didn't just poof and everybody was doing it, you know? Alright, next. Ethiopian monuments 1,000 years older than previously thought. Rising as high as 20 feet, ancient stone monoliths in southern Ethiopia are 1,000 years older than scientists previously thought, according to a new study in the Journal of African Archaeology. Okay, let's do this for you. Get a map going so you know where it's at. Because I like you to know what's going on and where things are, because I know many people don't know this. There we go. So, right? Am I right? It was nope, Ethiopia. Yeah. So here we go. We're in Africa, right here. and it's kind of towards the Horn. It isn't actually the Horn, but it travels into the Horn of Africa. So, yep, right here, Ethiopia. Okay. A Washington State University research team used advanced radiocarbon dating to determine the often phallic-shaped monoliths, or stelae, at the Saqqara Sodo archaeological site in Ethiopia's Judeo zone were likely created sometime during the 1st century AD. The only other attempt to determine the age of the more than 10,000 steel monoliths located at various sites in the Judeo zone was conducted by French scientists in the 1990s. It provided a far more modest construction date of around 1100 AD for the monuments of Tutofela in the northern part of Judeo. Under consideration at the UNESCO World Heritage Site, Saqqara Sodo and other archaeological sites in the zone have the largest number and highest concentration of megalithic steel monuments in Africa. The standing stones range widely in size, function, and arrangement in the landscape. While many of the monoliths have fallen and or undecorated, a few have intricately wrought faces and other anthropomorphic designs carved into the stone and can be seen today. It was shocking to see such a large number of monuments in such a small area, Zena said. Looking at the stones, many of which had fallen to the ground and some had broken into pieces, I decided to focus my dissertation work there instead of investigating cave sites in southern Ethiopia. In addition to pushing back the date of the earliest monoliths' construction by a millennium, the researchers also determined where the ancient boulders of this site likely quarried raw stone for the project. They also identified the first time the earliest known sources of obsidian artifacts that were recovered from the steel sites. Cool. Making a splash with your dissertation. Love it. So remember guys, I do it live stream so that you can ask questions as we go along. So if any question, let me know. Except to see my feet. I have had that before. Not on YouTube, when I was doing it on, what is the other site? Can't think of the name right now. Yeah, someone decided to ask me to see my feet. I'm not doing that. Not that type of stream, guys. Let's keep it scientific. Anyways. Who were the Nasca? Thriving in one of the most arid regions in the world, the Nasca lived on the southern coast of modern-day Peru for around 850 years until AD 650. Peru exhibition curator Cecilia Pardo Grau introduces their culture, including the colorful pottery, textiles, and stunning Nasca lines they're known for. So I actually got to go work here. My field school was in Nasca. It was wonderful, absolutely amazing, beautiful pottery. Like, you could see it and know that is Nasca pottery. It is gorgeous. I actually, hold on. Let me go grab it. I do actually have some. So there was this store that actually recreated known pieces that had been excavated. They made replicas of them with the exact same clay. So they went to the same location that their ancestors would have extracted the clay. They utilized the same pigmentations and the sources for those pigments. And then one of the things is the paintbrushes that they utilized were created from the haircut from a baby, so it's like specific, needs to be the baby's first haircut. I don't remember why, but it was an interesting fact. And yeah, so I bought one. Hold on, let me go get this. There we go. Yeah, I'll be right back. Be right back. because it's so beautiful. Alright, I'm back. Got this little dude. So it's kind of a miniature version. The original, it's got dust. The original was like way bigger than this. I need the dust in my room, jeez. But I didn't have the cash to be able to get the life-size recreation of it, so it's like 3 or 4 times bigger than this, but that's okay. It still has like the motif, and it's really cool. Like, they've got this, and this is actually not whiskers. It looks like it's whiskers, if you can see. There we go. If you can see it, it looks like it's whiskers, but it's actually a nose ring that this character has. And you can see like the legs here, and then it's got like a belly button, and then this is actually all around it is a cape that the character has. I forget what the character is called. But yeah, and then like the shine, such bad shine. Such bad shine. Okay. But yeah, that's like the place I got it from, and it's beautiful, very unique, and very identifiable if you see it. That's Nasca pottery. Anyways, yeah, I got to, my field school was here, and I was there for 6 weeks, and got to excavate a site down in this area, which was very exciting. A blast, to be honest. So, oh, I guess you guys might not know, so let's look up a map for Peru. Bum, 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 ba-da-bum, 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 da-da-bum, da-da-da-da-da-da. Because people don't always know what things are. Okay, so ignore this. So we're in South America here, and Peru is in this area. So we have Peru. And Nazca is down in here. You guys would know Machu Picchu, super famous site, Cuzco. And then Lima, right here. I actually got to spend a few days, probably just under a week total, in Lima. It was fun. Very, very cool city. They had a, what was it? I think it was Roosevelt Park? Yeah, they had a park named after the president, Roosevelt, here. And it was like a cat park. It was a cat sanctuary, so there was cats everywhere. And people went, they hung out there, you'd have music, they had like dancing. So when I was there, you show up and there's a whole bunch of old people just like in this park dancing. It was so cool, and everybody was surrounding, watching. It was wonderful. They'd have like food carts there, and I got a sandwich because the sandwiches were amazing. So amazing. And like, you sit down to eat and all the cats come around you. They're like, food? You gonna give me food? And they're kind of standoffish. They're, you know, cats. And it's great. I love it. I loved it. There was cats. Cat park, cat sanctuary in the city for them. Because over there, pets are very different than you see in the U.S. When we were working in Nazca, we saw this one dog that we decided to give some water, and once we gave her water, she like thought she was ours. There was dogs everywhere. They keep them out on the street. You don't really take them in your home or anything, so there was dogs everywhere. But there's one dog, it was funny, we gave her water once, and she started following us. If we left the house, went shopping or went out for food or whatever, she would follow us. And it was hilarious because she was in heat. So we'd have a trail of dogs behind us. Wherever we went, she would be a little bit behind us, and then all the male dogs, and then there would be like one male dog that was like guarding her. All the other dogs were trying to get close to her, and that one dog was not having it, but it was funny. Walking around, we had a trail of dogs coming with us. She was a sweetie, though. Anyways, that's not really the point of this right here. Okay, so Nasca is known, one, for their pottery, and two, for their lines. They have these giant images in the sand that show different things. This one is like an ant, it looks like, and there's tree, there's like a whale, I think, there's all kinds of things, birds, crazy stuff, insects, all kinds of stuff, and they're really cool. Like, they're giant. The Nazca people lived in the southern desert coast and western slopes of the Andes in Peru between 200 and 650 AD. Adapting and thriving in one of the most arid regions in the world, they are particularly famous for their colorful pottery, textiles, and geoglyphs known as the Nazca lines. The Nazca arose from the Paracas, a culture that developed around 700 years before in the valleys of Pisco and Ica, 200 kilometers to the north of Nasca. The area in southwestern Peru, genetic studies of DNA samples have shown that the Paracas and Nasca were the same ethnic group, and archaeology has shown that they shared similar beliefs. Another amazing pottery system going on with the Paracas, and then they both practiced cranial cranial modification, but they did it completely different. Like, you look at a skull, you'll be like, that's Paracas, and then you look at another one and be like, no, that's Nazca. So they were very different in the style that they were going for. Paracas is the elongated kind of alien skull, so if you've seen the Indiana Jones films, that's kind of that latest one with the aliens. They actually had aliens. That's what it was looking like, kind of. And then Nazca kind of formed like a double bump Mickey Mouse ears type of thing. So both cultures were conscious of the need to ensure the supply of water for agriculture and believe it was provided by their ancestors as givers of life. So you have a woman with long hair wearing a cape decorated with mythical beings, Nazca, Peru. So very unique art form. It's beautiful. Towards the end of the Paracas culture, groups migrated from the north and highlands and settled in the southern valley of Nazca, where new cultural traditions were developed around the ceremonial center of Cahuachi. The most important center of Nazca society in its early phase. It was where the distribution of water gathered from the highland regions was controlled and was the starting point of the paths that led to the geoglyphs and ceremonial areas. The location of the site between the Andes and the Pacific Ocean also helped it play an important role in facilitating the highland and coastal communities' interactions with one another. They have a map. The landscape of Nasca has a particular feature that differentiates it from other coastal regions. This is an area of the Andes where Cordillera runs across the region from north to south. Thousands of years ago, the depression between the Cordillera and the Andes filled the rounded boulders and finer sediments, creating a vast plain commonly known as pampas. These pampas were crossed by river fed by seasonal rainfall coming from the Andes, from coastal valleys that could be used for agriculture through the implementation of irrigation systems. I got a monkey. The peoples of Nazca saw the pampas as a Ritual space, a massive blank canvas between the Pacific Ocean coastline and the foothills of the Andean mountains on which to draw hundreds of enormous lines and figurative images known as geoglyphs. A term meaning drawing in the earth, they transformed the rocky terrain of the desert into a sacred space and could only be seen in their entirety from the sky. They say sacred space. One of the things about the lines is it's not 100% known what they used them for, but how were the Nazca lines made? Building on earlier traditions from the Paracas, then Nasca created the images by removing a top layer of earth and exposing the lighter sediments beneath. Over time, the wind gradually swept away fine sand from the surface of the lines, leaving behind a thick layer of small stones that were darker in color due to the oxidation process. The favorable climate conditions, being very dry, windless, and stable, have meant that many have been preserved until the present day. So these are actually not deep. They're very, it's just a fine top layer that they removed to make these. And what happened at the Nazca lines? Research suggests that the Nazca walked along the lines in groups, performing rituals and lively celebrations with music and dance. Evidence of human activity has been found along the geoglyphs, including the discovery of ceramics, offerings, and possible remains of building structures. Scientific analysis of the compact soil in the lines also shows that they were heavily walked upon. Music was very important to the Nazca, as shown by the sheer number of instruments such as panpipes, whistles, and drums found in the area. One of the main discoveries was from a 1995 excavation by archaeologist Giuseppe Orifecci, which included 27 damaged ceramic panpipes. A current theory relating to their damage is that the objects would have been broken intentionally as part of an offering or sacrifice and would have been used in ceremonies. These panpipes might have been used in celebrations conducted by priests or shamans, who would dress up in colorful clothing and masks. In these ceremonies, the consumption of psychoactive substances such as the San Pedro cactus, which contains mescaline, a strong hallucinogen, was paramount. Through special rituals, the shaman was thought to gain supernatural powers that allowed him to call on the gods. Yes, good old psychedelics. The Nazca principal deity is known as the mythical being. This human-like being adopts the traits of different animals and can be recognized by its nosepiece with a feline whiskers, diadem, a type of crown, and necklace with trapezoidal geometric shapes. In the central Andes, a society's... So yeah, that's this guy, right here. So, Central Andes societies perceived time in different way to Western civilizations. This was intrinsically linked to their culture and landscape, as well as their beliefs in the afterlife. In this belief system, the deceased were transformed into ancestors who inhabited a parallel world of the divine. In Nazca society, ancestors were seen as intermediaries between the two worlds of the living and dead, playing an important role in guaranteeing the resources such as food and water would be abundant. They are often shown wearing nose rings with feline whiskers or with other animal attributes such as those of the bird or whale, as seen in the drum below, on loan from the Museo de Arte de Lima. So we got the whiskers type thing, we got a crown, very stylized. They had very large earrings. They were very highly decorative in their dress. Oh, climate change. There were lots of reasons why the Nazca civilization came to an end, including environmental and social changes. Recent studies suggest that although living conditions in the region were less extreme than today, they were increasingly more difficult over time. Towards 100 BC, climate change resulted in a long process of desertification that eventually forced populations to abandon the lower lands and settle at higher altitudes, a process that may have led to the collapse of the culture. Human activities may also have contributed. Whether through deforestation or increased fighting, we see the number of images of warriors depicted in art increases significantly towards the end of the Nasca culture, when pressure on their society forced populations to relocate. In spite of the demise of the Nasca, their legacy lives on in the amazing geoglyphs that remain etched into the landscape. In 1994, the 500 square kilometer area containing the lines was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and conservation and protection of these incredible drawings continues today. So yes, beautiful culture, really, all of it was amazing. And if you ever get the chance to go to Nazca, I recommend it. Peru is absolutely gorgeous, and they have so many different terrain systems. Like, you can go from ocean to dry, super hot desert with like rolling hills of sand dunes, to the highest mountains up in like Machu Picchu. So very broad range going on there, very rich and beautiful history, lots of gorgeous pottery. They have mummies there that they have excavated, and you can see them in the museums there. So yeah, I should do like a little slideshow of pictures from my time there when I was working there. I don't know if you guys would be interested in that, let me know. Or if it's just gonna be like grandma showing off her pictures, or like that aunt doing a slideshow. I don't want to be that person, but if you're interested, let me know. I might share a few pictures. I did take a lot. I won't show all of them, but yes. Anyways, next, ancient DNA found in soil. Samples reveals mammoths, Yukon wild horses, survived thousands of years longer than believed. Mere spoonfuls of soil pulled from Canada's permafrost are opened vast windows into ancient life in the Yukon, revealing rich new information and rewriting previous beliefs about the extinction dynamics, dates, and survival of megafauna like mammoths, horses, and other long-lost life forms. In a new paper published in the journal Nature Communications, researchers from McMaster University, the University of Alberta, the American Museum of Natural History, and the Yukon government represent a 30,000-year DNA record of past environments, drawn from cored permafrost sediments, extracted from the Klondike region of central Yukon. Researchers used DNA capture enriched technology developed at McMaster to isolate and rebuild in remarkable detail the fluctuating animal and plant communities at different time points during the Pleistocene-Holocene transition on an unstable climate period 11,000 to 14,000 years ago, when a number of large species such as mammoths, mastodons, and saber-toothed cats disappeared. They reconstructed the ancient ecosystems using tiny soil samples which contain billions of microscopic genomic sequences from animal and plant species. The analysis reveals that mammoths and horses were already in steep decline prior to the climatic instability, but they did not immediately disappear due to human overhunting, as previously thought. In fact, the DNA evidence shows that both the woolly mammoth and North American horse persisted until as recently as 5,000 years ago, bringing them into the mid-Holocene, the interval beginning through roughly 11,000 years ago that we live in today, unless you are someone who subscribes to the idea of the Anthropocene. But if this article doesn't say don't count your chickens before they hatch is evident, one belief was that we overhunted these things and led to their extinction, but they didn't. They held on for thousands of years after. So, how much effect? Obviously, there is an effect if you have a new predator, but how much the effect that predator had is another question. Through the early Holocene, the Yukon environment continued to experience massive change. formerly rich grasslands, the mammoth steppe, were overrun with shrubs and mosses, species no longer held in check by large grazing herds of mammoths, horses, and bison. Today, grasslands do not prosper in northern North America, in part because there are no megafaunal ecological engineers to manage them. The rich data provides a unique window into the population dynamics of megafauna and nuances the discussion around their extinction through more subtle reconstructions of past ecosystems, says evolutionary geneticist Hendrik Weinar, a lead author on the paper and director of the McMaster Ancient DNA Center. This work builds on previous research who had determined woolly mammoths and the North American horse were likely present in the Yukon approximately 9,700 years ago. Better techniques and further investigation have since refined the early analysis and pushed forward the date even closer to contemporary time. Now that we have these technologies, we realize how much life history information is stored in permafrost. The amount of genetic data in permafrost is quite enormous and really allows for a scale of ecosystem and evolutionary reconstruction that is unparalleled with other methods to date. Although mammoths are gone forever, horses are not. The horses that lived in the Yukon 5,000 years ago is distinctly related to the horse species we have today, Equus caballus. Biologically, this makes the horse a Native American mammal, and it should be treated as such. Scientists also stress the need to gather and archive more permafrost samples which are at risk of being lost forever as the Arctic warms. Yes, let's do that. Let's fund it. Get that data. Even if we can't completely analyze it right now, get it, and people will analyze it. There is so much data out there that we should collect for future generations. Anyways, yeah, did you guys know that horses originated in the Americas and then went extinct here? And then were brought back by European settlers? Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Roundabout. Alright. Brucellosis, infection in a Neanderthal. I'm going to call it B, otherwise I'm going to continue saying it. I'm not quite sure how to say it. Okay, actually, let's do this. Let's just look it up. See how it's pronounced. How to pronounce brucellosis. Brucellosis. Ah! Yeah, I was right. Brucellosis, not brucellosis. Okay, brucellosis. Brucellosis. Ooh, that's loud. Alright. Brucellosis is a common zoonotic disease that is spread to humans via direct contact with infected animals or by consuming contaminated animal products such as raw meat or unpasteurized milk or cheese, or even by inhaling airborne pathogens. The disease has wide manifestations, from night sweats and fevers to long-term issues such as arthritis, even endocarditis. A new study in the Open Access Journal, Scientific Reports from Internal Medicine physician and head at the University of Zurich Evolutionary Mythology and Adaptation Group at the Institute of Evolutionary Medicine, Martin Hausler, documents his discovery that the 50,000-year-old Neanderthal fossil remains known as Old Man of La Chapelle, a La Chapelle au Sang 1, has pathological signs of brucellosis. In 2019, Hausler published this analysis in PNAS, I don't know, where he suggested this Neanderthal suffered from osteoarthritis or spondylosis. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce the PNAS. I don't know if it's PNAS or PNAS or whatever, but I use it. Okay, anyways, so here are his vertebrae. Some thoracic, it looks like. which is kind of the upper mid-back. You got your cervical, which are the neck, and then the thoracic, which travel from the neck down through the, it's kind of to the end of the ribs, and then the lumbar. Might be a higher, let me see. Cervical. I was so wrong. Cervical vertebra. I saw it from here, and then seeing this, I was like, maybe not. So yeah, I second-guessed myself. Second-guessed myself because I was clearly very, very wrong. No. Yeah. It's kind of hard to see in this picture, but this one, looking at this one, it was clear. Not thoracic. Very much cervical. Okay, a closer look made him skeptical of his prior assessment. As you can see from arrows C7 and T1, vertebra, as well as his description, his findings below. Actual subchondral and marginal erosions at the inferior end plates of vertebrae C5 and C6, erosions in the right facet joints, as well as both facet joints, lytic lesions in the extra-articular areas of T1 to S1, and erosions in a reactive bone formation extending far beyond the left hip joint. Rather, the mixed picture of a destructive and proliferative processes is typical of an inflammatory etiology. So if you look here, looking at these pictures, this indentation that you can see in this flare out coming in here, that's not normal. That's not healthy, and this individual had problems with his vertebra. This makes Old Man of La Chapelle the oldest known example of zoonotic disease in a hominin. Previously, evidence of this disease has also been found in Bronze Age Homo sapiens skeletons from 3,500 to 5,000 years ago in Bahrain, Jordan, and Iran. That is a pretty remarkable discovery in itself. Aside from that, given that the Old Man of La Chapelle died around 50-60 years of age, the degree of degeneration due to brucellosis seen in his vertebrae implies that this Neanderthal probably had a milder version of the disease. If you don't remember, this fossil individual had no teeth and was likely supported by his group for quite some time before his death. Oh, that's it? That's it? No more? I wanted more. Damn, I love this stuff. I love this stuff. So interesting looking at pathology. So cool. So these little ears that you see here, they actually connect with each other. They have little facets that the ear of the one, so this is the bottom, the ear of the one below it will attach and have a little bit of some like cartilage for movement and everything. So yes, the fact that they are on these facets is important. I should do more like pathology stuff. I should know it because it's so cool. I love this sort of thing. Okay, did the Vikings actually torture victims with the brutal blood eagle? Don't know if you guys have heard of this, but it is a torture technique that was apparently used or supposedly used by the Vikings, where they cut open the back and like splayed the rib. They cut the ribs from the spine and splayed them open, and then they would take the lungs and they would like flip them up. Totally brutal. If you've ever watched the show Vikings, they perform it in the show. Disgusting, horrible, and the victim was alive the whole time, supposedly, although that's some major pain. I think you would just pass out if you didn't bleed out first. Anyways, In popular lore, few images are as synonymous with Viking brutality as the blood eagle, a practice that allegedly found torturers separating the victim's ribs from their spine, pulling their bones and skin outward to form a set of wings, and removing their lungs from their chest cavity. The execution method shows up twice in the popular History Channel drama series Vikings. As a ritual reserved from the protagonist's worst enemies, Jarl Borg and King Aela, a fictionalized counterpart to the actual Northumbrian ruler in the video game Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Ivar the Boneless, a character based on the Viking chieftain who invaded the British Isles in the 9th century CE, performs the blood eagle on his nemesis King Rodri. I never finished the series Vikings. I should. These representations take their cue from medieval sources written in both Old Norse and Latin. In each of the extant 9 accounts, the victim is captured in battle and has an eagle of some sort carved into their back. Some references to the torture are terse, others are more graphic, aligning with the extreme versions depicted in contemporary popular culture. Either way, the ritual's appearance in these texts is intended to send a message tied to honor and revenge, which modern depictions of it use that, and yeah. Okay, experts have long debated whether the blood eagle was a literary trope or an actual punishment. Sources are often vague, referencing legendary figures of dubious veracity or mixing up accepted historical chronology. Unless archaeologists find a corpse bearing clear evidence of the torture, we'll likely never know. If the Vikings did perform the blood eagle, does that mean the Middle Ages were as brutish, nasty, and dark as stereotypes suggest? The answer is complex. Vikings, like many medieval people, could be spectacularly violent. People love their violence. Even today, our TV shows seem to be getting more and more violent. Sometimes I've got to skip some scenes because they're pretty brutal. The work of scholars is to understand how this violence fit into a complex society, and a new study does just that. So here we have lore suggesting King Aela executed Viking leader Ragnar Lothbrok by throwing him into a pit of snakes. Ragnar's sons supposedly took revenge on Aela by performing the blood eagle on him. Set to be published in Speculum, a journal of medieval studies, later this month, the article sidesteps the question of whether the ritual actually took place during the Viking Age, instead asking whether the blood eagle could feasibly serve as a torture method. The answer, according to an interdisciplinary team of medical doctors, anatomists, and a historian, is a resounding yes. Study co-authors Monty Gates and Heidi Fuller, both medical scientists at Keele University in England, were spurred to investigate the blood eagle by the Viking series. The show led them to medieval sagas, which opened up further questions and made them realize they needed to consult a historian. The give-and-take nature of the pair's collaboration with Luke John Murphy, a historian of religion at the University of Iceland, proved eminently fruitful, with the different perspectives of history and medicine pushing the scholars in unexpected ways. Work on the anatomical limits of the ritual spurred me to consider the wider social and cultural limits within which any historical blood eagle would have had to have taken place, Murphy says. This in turn led to a more nuanced discussion of not only what could have happened, but how and why. In the paper, the authors move methodically through the medieval sources before discussing what would happen to the human body if the fullest version of the procedure was carried out. In short, nothing good. Unless performed very carefully, the victim would have died quickly from suffocating or blood loss. Even if the ritual was conducted with care, the subject would have almost certainly died before the full blood eagle could be completed. As Murphy explains, the blood eagle plays a prominent role in our early 21st century constructions of Vikings, which generally favor an understanding that violence was commonplace in the Iron Age Nordic region. That's been the case for quite a while, he adds. The ritual, as it exists in popular culture today, owes a lot to the attitudes of Victorian scholars who were keen to exaggerate its role, in order to emphasize the barbarity of the past and civilized nature of their own time. Sounds familiar. This worked doubly well for the Victorians as a means of demonstrating the superiority of the native English over the Viking invaders. Approaching the question from a different angle allowed the researchers to dig through the scholarship, place the medieval sources within the proper context, and draw on modern technology to examine what actually would have happened during the ritual. They use anatomical modeling software to effectively recreate extreme versions of the blood eagle, simulating the effect of each step of the torture on the human body. In line with the study's interdisciplinary bent, the authors paired this analysis with historical and archaeological data about the specialized tools available within Viking society. Their findings indicate, for instance, that torturers may have used spears with shallow hooks to unzip the ribs from the spine, a conclusion that could explain the presence of a spear in one of the few possible medieval visual depictions of the ritual. This. So you got the spear here. The blood eagle's prominence within Viking society, both during the medieval era and as ascribed to the centuries since, stems from its emphasis on ritual and revenge. The execution methods, recurring appearances in medieval texts, often without extensive explanation, suggest a common understanding among Viking Age readers and listeners, many of whom would have learned the tales through oral tradition. For Ivar the Boneless, the feared Viking portrayed in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the Old Norse Knutsdrapa, simply says, "And Ivar, who ruled at York, had Ayla's back cut with an eagle." This succinct description has led some scholars to posit that an actual eagle was used to slice open the Northumbrian king's back. Other sources detailed the practice more fully. Harold's saga from the Orkney Islands states that Viking Earl Torf-Einar had his enemy's ribs cut from the spine with a sword and lungs pulled out through the slits in his back. He dedicated the victim to Odin as a victory offering. A common element in the medieval sources, according to the authors of the new study, is that the aggressors performed the ritual on enemies who killed one of their family members. As such, the scholars concluded the blood eagle could have formed an extreme but not implausible outlier to the idea of the bad death within wider Viking society, a way to avenge an earlier deviant, dishonorable, or otherwise culturally condemned death. This was an act that had meaning. Matthew Gillis, a historian at the University of Tennessee and the author of an upcoming book on medieval horror, describes medieval Christian authors as horror experts. He says that textual vignettes, like the ones featured in the new study, were intended to teach a lesson, such as frightening their audience into returning to God. Though some of the Old Norse sources detailing the practice predate Christianity's rise in the region, they were read and retold for centuries after their creation. Gillis' observations builds on the earlier work of scholar Valentin Grosvenor, who wrote in 2004 that the terror tends to disorient violence, and how the violence was portrayed in the European Middle Ages was a way of making meaning, of rendering visible important ideas that had previously remained unseen. In other words, rituals like the blood eagle had meaning because they were a way, in practice or on the page, of drawing lines between groups of people and warning outsiders of the dangers of crossing that boundary. Ritual torture, like the blood eagle, dehumanized by literally transforming man into an animal. So this is almost done, but when looking through historic documents in order to identify certain events or characteristics or cultural views of a group, you have to look at who the author was and what their personal like biases, their personal biases would have been, and what their goal was of writing that paper. When you learn to write papers in school, one of the things you're taught is to think of your audience. When analyzing papers, that's really important. And if your source material is written by an outsider, you might have a very different view, more brutish, depending on what they were trying to do. A lot of times they were trying to paint things as outsiders, make sure people were afraid. Fear is a very strong tactic in order to keep people in line culturally, and it has been shown throughout history to have been utilized. So, yeah, interesting. Maybe one day we'll find a body with it. If it was just like carved into their back, then we likely won't find much, but you might. The ribs are pretty right there, so. Anyways. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting pretty tired, and I've been on for a while. So I'm gonna call it quits. We'll cover these next week. I hope you guys enjoyed this, learned some stuff. I will be back next Tuesday. See you guys then. And join me on my Twitter. You can look up Bones of Amber, or it's like Amber Bones or something. I have it in my YouTube description. And then I also have my Discord, which is relatively active. I always want more people in there. We can discuss many different things. I sometimes post like I share my like little crafty hobbies that I do sometimes. So yeah, I will see you guys next week. Take care.